Hi, I'm Meta Spencer. Today is a thrilling day for me because not only do I get to go to the Congo, which I've never visited, I've never been in Africa whatsoever, but I also get to introduce a new partner, a co host for this particular forum, but someone with whom I think I'll be working uh, frequently in the future, Dr. Neil Arya. Let me say a bit about Dr. Arya. He's a professor of medicine or something. I may not have the title quite right at Wilfrid Laurier University and is lives in the Waterloo area of Ontario. Have I got it right, Neil?
Well, I'm an adjunct professor at Laurier as well as the University of Waterloo in health
Uh,
sciences and public health sciences, and then at McMaster and Western in family medicine.
Wonderful to know. I should introduce you properly because they're going to be, I hope, seeing more of you from time to time, as you are the leader of an organization called Pegasus, which is an organization primarily, I think, of health professionals. Do you want to say a couple of sentences about Pegasus before we move on, Neil?
Yeah, so Pegasus began as a series of conferences back in 2014, and even before then in 2012, and that's when we invited Pakiza. It has really had the perspective of looking at global health, and global health can relate to things beyond the borders of countries like Canada, but also within, with populations that are more marginalized or equity deserving at its nexus with peace and sustainability. But we take a very transdisciplinary approach. And so it's not just health professionals and public health people, but people in various disciplines from peace studies, environmental studies, anthropology, sociology. And then we've got people on the research end, education, those working in the field, people who are advocates or activists, as well as policy people. So the whole spectrum of people looking at things. So very much like Project Save the World. So there are a lot of intersections. We had conferences from 2014 every 2 years till 2020, and then we were forced to cancel our conference in 2020, and we pivoted and then decided to form a nonprofit that's now a charity called the Pegasus Institute, working on the same sort of issues. We have different networks, an East Africa network, a Francophone network that Pakiza is a leader in, a Latin American network, and then an emerging leaders network. So
See, I
that's
didn't know any of that until a few weeks ago, and it's to my shame. But because we are, we're certainly soulmates in terms of what we're doing,
Mhm.
and it is wonderful that you'll be able to join us and co-host or sometimes host shows and bring in your own team of people that you have. We're always looking for smart speakers who can talk about really important issues, and you have those. So it's I'm so glad to that you called me. You took the initiative to call me because I didn't, I was out of the, I was clued out. Anyway, we're now team. So thank you. And now let me
Excellent.
turn to my new friend, Pakasa. May I say your pronoun? Simika?
Paikisa Shimika.
Sumika. Okay.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. I may not get the TS very
That's
well.
okay.
I have trouble
That's
in Russian with SARS and
yeah.
TS sounds.
That's okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, all right, I'll do my best. But
Yeah.
it's good, wonderful to meet you. I should
Thank you.
say only that I've learned that you're a public health person, right? That your
Yes.
main work, and you
Yeah.
head an organization called the Mama Maketa House of Hope,
House of Hope. Yes, correct. Yes.
which I believe from the website I learned that you named it for your mother, Rebecca.
Yes.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When my mother died in 2002, she died suddenly here in Kinshasa, where I left her
Mm-hmm.
after my dad had died. So she lived with us for a while. And then 99, we had to move to California because it was becoming difficult for me to travel with the work I had with all the Mennonites from around the globe. So I needed to be in a place where I could easily travel. I decided to carry on her legacy as someone who was an incarnation of hospitality for me. And that's how we started the organization Mama Kilos of Hope in 2002.
Wonderful.
Now,
Okay.
Paquita, I wonder if starting much earlier, like telling us about yourself and your life journey. I know you have your book that you
Yes.
might tell people about, but maybe you could just start at the beginning in terms of growing up, and then we can talk about the NGO and your
Yes.
peace work afterwards.
Mhm. Well, I was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and from the southwest region of the country, and right on the border with Angola. So where I grew up in a place called Kijiji was what we call the mission station that was started by when I was born was by the Mennonites, especially the Mennonite Brethren, who had established schools and a hospital, as well as starting with the nurses aid program and later on moving to the regular nursing program. So I was born in that area, but my dad was a pastor, so was a leader in that community. Uh, and then I went to high school to the city called Kikwit, 460 kilometers from home, because we did not have full high school where I was born. So it was up to junior high. So already from the high school time, uh, I learned how to be basically self-sufficient. But then when I was in my last year of school, that's where I met one of the Canadian doctors who had been sent to replace another Canadian doctor at our hospital. And he one day in our conversation, he asked me, "Have you ever thought about going to do medicine?" And I told him, I said, "I would. I have thought about it. Especially, I have been being the pastor's kid. I've watched how many times when there were troubles in the country, all the missionaries left and leaving the hospital basically without qualified people. And so I always felt like they had one foot on the ground, one foot on the airplane. As soon as they hear any problem, they are gone." So I explained to him that. And then I said, but because my parents could not afford to send me next year to medical school, I've decided I'll just go and do mechanic. And he said, well, if you do mechanic, then why don't you work on people? So that's how the whole thing started. There were a couple other missionaries where I was born, were nurses who said, well, why don't we check if we can go for pre-med in the US, then do medical school in the US. So that's how they introduced me to two Mennonite schools, one in Kansas and one in California. And in the discussion with a lot of folks, I applied to both of them anyway. And I got accepted to by both of them. That's how, but because of the weather, I chose not to go to Kansas. I went to California. So that's where I started my pre-med program. And then on my junior year, on the way to a wedding, a friend's wedding, and we got in a car accident, which changed basically my life. I was paralyzed for some time, and then I was flown back to Fresno, where I had been living. The accident took place in Oregon. But the city of Fresno basically adopted me, and so they were able to pay all my bills for medical care, especially that the accident took place during the summer when the school was not going on, so was not covered under the student insurance. I applied at several universities, and I had been accepted at the university in Lyon, France. So I was going to leave 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, then that's when I was in a car accident. But anyway, so I went back to school. Students helped me, taking care of me on a wheelchair, and then finally, our visit to Stanford for a conference. I went to visit with the dean of the medicine there at Stanford. I talked with him about the possibility of what do I do now? I wanted to go to medical school. I want to be a surgeon, and those now not an option. And that's when he introduced me to public health. He said, "We've thought about public health," and I said, "Well, what's that?" So he explained to me, and he said, "Because of your ties with the church, I think the best option for you is to go to Loma Linda in Southern California." So I applied with the conviction that I said, "God, if you really want me to stay in the health field, I'm going to apply only to one university and only one. If I'm not accepted, then forget about the healthcare." So that's how I got accepted, did my master's there, and then went back to Congo, came back to Congo, worked for from 1980 to 86. Then moved back to Loma Linda again, where I did my doctorate in public health. And then in 92, one of the physicians who had been working in Tanzania came back. He decided to, he convinced the university to start an international health program. So one day he saw me going around with a walker, and he stopped and said, "Well, I heard that you're a Mennonite." They started talking and said, I work with a lot of Mennonites in Tanzania. And I said, "What are you studying?" I said, "I'm studying epidemiology." He said, "No, no, 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 don't do epidemiology. That's not good for you. I think for the work that you want to do in the future." I said, "You want to go back to Congo?" I said, "Yes, I want to go back to Congo." He said, "No, come, I'm going to change everything for you. You're going to do international health." And I never regretted it. And he has become now one of my mentors because he's the president of the university now. So anyway, so that's then I came back to Congo. But that time in the 80s, I participated in the reorganization of the whole healthcare system in the Congo. Mm-hmm. So I work on the advisory committee that was set up for the program, and then at that time, Congo has decided to set up what we call the health zone as a strategy for providing primary health care throughout the country. And the USAID decided to finance 13 health zones to get started. So I was chosen. I mean, ours was selected because I had already started the idea of bringing people from our province. I brought them to Kijiji to discuss how we can decentralize the program rather than everything being hospital dependent. Mm-hmm. And so that attracted some of the national leaders on what I was doing. And so then after I got back to Loma Linda and back in 92, there I changed. I was working looking at the program management for the whole church.
Like, this was a major thing, your motor vehicle accident, as you were going to a wedding in Victoria. Mm-hmm. And before then, you had been an athlete. You had been a soccer star.
That's right.
Yeah. Still have some records there. And then all of a sudden, your life changes. Yes. You're 3 weeks away from starting medical school in Lyon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd just like you to maybe share a little bit about that, if you don't mind. And then also about meeting Linda.
I just finished writing an article for one of the big Mennonite magazine called Grief I Belong and I Hope. So basically, after the accident, because it was in Medford, Oregon. And just the fact that a lot of people would drive from Fresno and drive for the whole day to come and visit me in the hospital was something. And there was a pastor from not too far from the hospital where I was, who heard about my accident. He would come, and at that time I was on the striker frame. So if he found me, I am looking down, he would put something on the floor to visit with me. So there were people like that. That was the first thing. And then when I was flown to Fresno, I remember one of the local reporters asking me, Pagisa, you were a good athlete, just like you said. You broke record for your school, and now all of a sudden you are flat on the bed. What's your hope? And I told him that, I thought for a second. Then I said, before I left home, my mom had prayed for me, and she said, Pagisa, you are going far away. We don't know where that place is. And you're probably going to feel alone sometimes. And you might feel that I am so far away from my family, but God will provide you a family, and God is never going to leave you alone. When sure enough, actually, that's one thing I did not say, Neil. When the first weekend I got to Fresno, I asked if there was a Mennonite church nearby, and they told me there was one just within walking distance. And when I walked to that church, at the end of the service, there was one gentleman and his wife who came to me and said, "Oh, you from Zaire at the time?" And I said, "Yes. Would you like to? Do you have planned for lunch?" I said, "No, I don't." I said, "Would you like to come for lunch with us?" And I did. And from that day, they adopted me as their son. And they drove to Medford with a vehicle so that people who are coming, I guess motorhome, for people who are coming to visit, they'll be there. So that's the big one part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the students. So right away, I realized that it's that sense of belonging with people who are from everywhere. Some people who knew me, people who did not know me. They're the ones really who made it possible for me to survive, if I can say that. But then once I got better, like I said, I went back to Congo. Linda was working as a nurse in Kijiji, and she lived next door to my parents. So I always joke with people that she was the girl next door. And we would meet at the Bible study, and I was working at the hospital, starting at that time as a hospital administrator. And she was working in the pharmacy as well, teaching in the nursing school. And then we had the little Bibles. They had the Bible school that was organized, so I would go to that one. And so we would meet with everybody. I had no interest really of, at that time, as she could be my wife, whatever, because when I was in the US, I decided I'm not going to get married to an American who is going to stop me from going back home. So that was a decision that I already made. So now I meet this, there were 3 women, single women there, the younger ones. And so anyway, but sure, then.
Was she American?
She was American, yes, from Kansas. Yeah.
So that was interesting because you could have ended up in Kansas to begin with.
That's right.
Acceptance. You ended up there anyway.
That's right. Then I meet one then Kansas brought to me in Kijiji. So, but what was interesting, actually, beside working on or being on the same group and also working at the hospital together, then she got sick. with hepatitis. So she was all yellow. And so one time I went and picked up a flower that was yellow. And I brought to her, I said, Linda, here's a flower for you. And matches very well with your skin now. So, but then anyway, after that, Linda and I started just visiting. What first attracted me to her was she had a guitar, so she could play sometimes. So we would sit in her veranda playing guitar. She would play guitar, and we sing some songs, some folk songs that I knew, and that really attracted me. But anyway, so we decided to talk about maybe we should consider a formal relationship. Then after she went back to Kansas, I had been invited for a conference there to speak at the conference. So I went to visit her family. And then I got a scare actually that day because her father asked me one afternoon, it was just him and I. He said, "Do you love my daughter?" And I'm thinking about Congo. If the daughter's father asks you, "Do you love my daughter?" you better start figuring out how you're going to run away from that place. So then anyway, but then I think he saw that I was uneasy, so I went for coffee.
What did you tell him?
Well, finally, when he came back, I didn't know how to respond. So he just said, "I want you to know this: if you love my daughter and you want to get married to her, it's between your choice. We are not going to be on the way." And then he said, "Don't forget, I was born in the Ukraine, and we were among the later folks to come to the U.S. And many people were telling me that you are Russian, and why would you want to marry our daughter? I mean, one of us because they are from they're Germanic background." Finally said, "Feel free, just don't think that we're going our way." So that's how we finally decided. And the following year, I was invited to speak again at another conference, at an international conference. So we decided to get married in 1984.
Now, Pakiza, uh, I wonder now, because I know a lot of people interested in the podcast
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything about Congo and its history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think taking people a bit through that might be useful. Then maybe you might be able to start with Congo before 1884. What
Mm-hmm.
happened after that?
Sometimes when even Congolese talk about Congo, we tend to think a lot from the time the Belgians or King Leopold. But just to say that Congo is a combination of many kingdoms, local kingdoms that existed, like Bakuba Kingdom, the Lunda Kingdom, which is where I come from, the Lunda Kingdom, for instance, covers part of Congo, Angola, part of Zambia. Uh, those were part of the Lunda Kingdom where I come from. And then you have the like I said, the Bakuba, and you also have so different. What it become the different provinces were also part of the different kingdoms in the country. So so many of those, they were really well organized. The Congo Kingdom, for instance, which is closer to the ocean, that one also is divided between Congo Brazzaville, and Angola. So each one of them had their administrative organization. They had their own military system, and so all kind of systems that were organized within each one of those kingdoms. But then when the Europeans started to travel different areas for basically economic reasons, in the Congo, one of the biggest discovery was Stanley, who was looking for the what called the Zambezi River, I think, in which is between Zambia and Zimbabwe. But then, in the process, he discovered the Congo River, and then as he went up, then he was received by the chiefs. But the other part of the equation was Stanley had gone searching for Livingston. And then he had his own discoveries and so forth. But the big story continues when King Leopold had been Leopold II, looking for a place for himself. And he tried to convince the British and the American especially about negotiating a place that he could call his own. So that's how he connected with Stanley to get the Congo. And then he just drew the map of the country the way he wanted it. But I think he had some objections from other countries until he proposed to all these big powers that we would make Congo a free trade zone. And the free trade just meant that everybody can go and do business without restriction from King Leopold II. So that continues until the early 1920, I think. I don't have the exact date there.
Excuse me, boy, was that good for the country or bad? I wouldn't know whether I wouldn't know what to make of that.
It was not good idea, because during that time also they've discovered the use of rubber for making tires. Mm. But before that, the main trade was ivory that they were bringing from Congo into Europe, and which was providing a lot of income for Belgium, for King Leopold to build, especially the city like Antwerp was built with a lot of resources from the Congo, as well as Brussels. But the bad part of it was King Leopold had never been in Congo. But what he did, he had his officers put in many different posts inside the country, and those, if you want to read more about it, you can find the book King Leopold's Ghost.
That's written by one of my dearest friends.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there he describes about how these officers were committing a lot of atrocities in the country, and where if sometimes they would take women and children hostages and put them in a closure until the men brought the right amount of rubber that was required. A chief who did not meet his quota, they'll cut their arms, or they'll cut their hands. So the hands were signs of, well, I mean, that's how they would say how many people they got were not obedient by counting the number of hands that those officers will bring, those soldiers will bring to school. So it was really awful, and they did not really invest in developing very well the country, but they developed all the infrastructure that would allow goods to leave Congo to go to Europe. Mm-hmm. So they build railroads that are only for going from the inland to the coast to get the stuff to go to Europe. As far as developing anything inside the country, that was not the case. And then when King Leopold went bankruptcy, he sold. Okay, first I should say that it was considered almost like that was his own property. So he sold the Congo to his to the Belgian government. And now I don't know the exact amount, but the document that shows the transaction between King Leopold to Belgium, Congo, to the Belgian, is available now. That actually it was like it was his own property, and then when someone else wanted, he sold it. So, which meant, and the people and everything that was on the ground and was above the ground were here to sell to the Belgian. So that's how the Belgian finally ruled the country until 1960, when Congo got its independence. The Belgians leaving behind only maybe less than a dozen university graduates.
And then also, if you could let us know a little bit more about some of the natural resources and capacities, the richness in the country. Yeah. You mentioned rubber and ivory initially, but just some of the other things.
When they divided the country, they did not take into account the natural borders. So that's why you see now a certain people group in two different countries, because they just drew the line wherever they had wanted. So you have in Angola, so you have, for instance, the tribal group I'm a part of. You have Chokwe in Angola and Chokwe in Congo. You have village. My parents have a village in the Congo side, and they also have a village on the Angolan side. If you go to the back Congo, it's the same thing. So and the other piece also that is very intriguing for Congo is that it's the only country in Africa where you have 9 neighbors. So with 9, if they would have at least divided maintain the kingdoms like they did in West Africa, East Africa, and so forth, then you would not have a village, a country that has more than 2 or 3 neighboring countries. So Congo has 9, and within those 9, you have now the people with very fluid borders, where if there's a problem on one side, they go to the other side and back and forth. So that's probably one of the issues.
Are you saying fluid like loyalties? They don't necessarily feel anchored in any one place?
Wherever it's safe, that's where they go. Because let me just take one example. The Eastern Congo is a little bit a different story. But if you take the area where I come from, that place the Lunda kingdom was supposed to be maintained intact. But because the Belgians needed access to the ocean, they agreed with Portugal that they would give them part of the Lunda kingdom, and on the other end, the Belgians would get part of the ocean on the ocean side. So that's how Congo got its. I don't know. I think it's about 60 miles of the ocean line. So that's divide, folks. So the loyalty is to the group, which is on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So if in Congo they feel like they are mistreated, they go to Angola. When they are in Angola, they are among their own people again. And this is probably the best way, because you lived in Southern California. The best way to explain it is the relationship between the Mexicans in Mexico and the Mexicans in California or New Mexico. When they are moving within New Mexico or California, the Mexicans are moving within their own area where they had been for years. So in Congo, it's the same story. So you have the Choke people. When they go to Angola, they've not left the land of their ancestors. So that's I guess the loyalty aspect. Yeah, I'm talking about the resources of the Congo, and the Congo resources they're supposed to be a blessing, but they've become a curse. For instance, Congo has 60 to 70% of the cobalt reserve in the world. Congo has some of the highest, I can't remember the percent, but a very high percentage of the coltan. And then gold. I mean, you call it, I think there are about 21 minerals that are available in the Congo. And the crazy thing about this whole thing, remember I said we have 9 countries bordering Congo. The only natural resources that we share with other countries bordering us, it's between Congo and Zambia, where there's copper, and I think there might be some cobalt, but otherwise, even when there are natural limits, those natural resources are not found in the neighboring countries, just in Congo. So, and now in the last few years, they have discovered that the whole Congo basin is full of oil. And for many of us, as much as it might sound like a nice thing to discover, it's adding to another curse for Congo, because that's what everybody wants. And some people want it for free, or get it from a neighboring country rather than getting it directly from the Congolese people.
We hear more about problems with people in Rwanda.
Yes.
And so maybe you can explain that conflict.
Okay.
Just to put it into context, Makiza, could you tell
Yes.
us a little bit more how peace became part of your life and peace building? And then we can talk more about the context in Eastern Congo.
Yeah. Well, I think growing up in the Mennonite context, in high school, we had probably 80% of my teachers were Americans and Canadians. And many of those, well, all of them, I should say, had been sent to work in schools in Africa, many parts of Africa, as volunteer who who are conscientious objectors. So they did not want to go to war in Vietnam, and so they decided to do services, some inside the U.S., Canada, and the others around the world. The largest number of these volunteers were in the Congo. They were by the hundreds at some point. And they work with all the schools, being Catholic, government, and so forth. So in the discussions in schools, just about each time that we have any class, they talk about the peace stand of the church. They talk about how we are believers of peace. And so that influence became very strong already from high school. And then when I went to Fresno Pacific, it was a Mennonite Brethren school, and there it was even much stronger because the teachers who were my professors, they were part of what I'll call the radical groups, and pushing that we are not just to go and save the natives with the gospel, but we also must stand against oppression, against injustice, and so forth. So that really influenced already my life when it comes to the peace area. Then when I came back to work both in the 80s, then in the 90s, I tried to see how in everything that we did, that peace building was part of it. As a matter of fact, maybe just a little story. The mayor of the town where I was had accused me to the presidential security system that I was working against national security. And then the governor sent me a note to say that I would like to visit with you when I am visiting the area. So when I met with him, he told me that the message had gone all the way to the president, and he asked me to come and investigate if what the gentleman said was true. And the reason for why he accused me was because we had the patient in the hospital who had come from Angola, and they had operated on him, and he sent the soldiers to go and arrest him, to take him to the mayor's office. So I refused. They were not going to take this man to that office. But anyway, to make the whole story short, the governor told me that yes, I see that you have very strong, not maybe opinion or about defending the weak and those who are unjustly being punished. And as a matter of fact, the president is very proud of you. He told me to tell you that. So what was supposed to be at that time, if you are accused to the presidential security for doing that, to go against security, well, they will never see you again. They invite you, put in a bag, throw you in the river. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, that was the beginning. Why not just practicing also what my father did. I remember during the rebellion in the 60s, there were rebels who were getting ready to come in our area. My dad called all the leaders in the area, government and non-government, and he told them, we are going to stand firm. Those rebels cannot arrive in our area. And we should tell all our young people, if they come, we should work against them. So I was watching my dad as a kid in primary school, taking that kind of stand, firm. And so when I became adult, I think I had incarnated that not not just attitude, but the way of life. And I think that's what the early piece that could never go away until today.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, I wonder, because we only have 10 minutes or so left, could we get to Eastern Congo?
Yes.
And I think that you set the stage by talking about Angola and Congo and the fluid borders and different interests. You also set the stage by talking about resources and some of the resources in Congo, not in neighboring countries. Could you try to help us understand a bit about Eastern Congo?
There are several countries in Eastern Congo. You have Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, DRC, South Sudan, Tanzania. Those are the main ones. And people have moved for years between all those countries. And the problem in Eastern Congo goes back into, let's go back in probably 1956, when there was, no, let's go back. When Germany was defeated, it was with the soldiers from Congo who fought on the side of the Belgians and so forth. So when and at that time, the kingdom, there was a kingdom of Rwanda. Part of it was in the Congo. So when the war was over, to thank Belgium for what they did, so they took Rwanda and Burundi, because at that time was Rwanda, Burundi, and were given basically to the Belgians, are the colonies. So that's why you had Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi. They had the same banks, and all the systems were the same. So they could also move people from any one of those countries to the next one. In Eastern Congo was because it was very rich soil. So they had the coffee plantation, tea plantation. So they can bring people from Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda, and so forth. But then there was a problem between the Tutsi and the Hutu in that area. And then the Tutsi massacred the Hutu. So many of those fled to Eastern Congo. And I was just I couldn't hear you.
What year are we talking about? Just so
We're talking about the 1956, around there. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so there are documentaries about the Hutus moving to Eastern Congo, and how Red Cross was negotiating with Congo to provide them space and so forth. And then in 1996, but before that, the Tutsis that had fled to Uganda started to organize themselves so that they can go back. And with the backing of at that time was I think was Bill Clinton's administration, had trained the soldiers, the Tutsi soldiers who were in Uganda, and helped them when they moved to Rwanda and took after they killed the president of Rwanda and Burundi, and then that whole lot that started the genocide.
Yeah. So to clarify, we're talking
Yeah,
about 93,
92,
94.
94.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and when you had
95.
the assassination of the presidents, the
Yeah,
massacre of the largely Tutsis, and then you had the migration of people
yeah.
uh, from Rwanda to
To
Eastern.
Congo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what happened? Because Rwanda was controlling that whole region for some time, at least the first 3 years. Uh, they had basically massacred a lot of the Hutus who were in the camps in Congo. I think they are I'm gonna say there are photos that have been shown for that. So and now I guess where we are now is it the whole thing where the current Rwandan president talks about defending the Tutsis who are in Congo. But the question had been asked in the Congo had been, well, these folks have lived in the Congo for years. They've never had a problem uh, in their cohabitation with the Congolese or the local people as because they came as refugees. So why is it now that it's become a problem? So if you want to see more on that, the other part is in the Congo Holocaust by Charlie Onana. That the issue now where we are at, where a lot of sanctions are being developed against Rwanda, it's becoming a regional issue. Yes, it seems like the main presence of Rwanda in the Congo is not just the issue of the former genociders or the defense of the Tutsi in the Congo, but it's more of the natural resources, because now they're finding that Kagame had been supporting just about all the small rebel groups in Eastern Congo. There's a British, the Guardian, I think, that just published that not long.
The Congo government has
No,
been,
no, the Rwandan government.
The Rwandan government. Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
one thing just for clarification, Pakiza, in Eastern Congo, when you did have Tutsis fleeing there and you had the camps, there
yes.
were cases with the Hutu militias at that time actually massacring within the camps in Congo. That's the types of things that people associated with the Rwandan government also
Yes.
talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what got the problem with one of the former president, Laurent, because one of the agreements he had with Kagame was to massacre those Hutus in the camps without any. He should close his eyes, and thus he got the problem with the international community on that. But it's not been. There was no follow through about what to do about all those massacres and so forth. But yeah, the problem now is, okay, you have the current Congolese president who finally have been able to say the problem is not Rwanda, the problem is the president of Rwanda who is responsible for what's going on. And then that's how they've been, their diplomacy is basically working, because you have now all kind of countries that are no longer defending Kagame, because Kagame was able to portray to the world about how he was a model for development. He was a model for democracy and so forth. But the dark side was not shown. And that's why now also Burundi has closed a while now its border with Rwanda. And Uganda is closing one of its border with Rwanda. And I think all those countries is because of economic reasons.
Look, I would love to pursue this, and let's come back to do it another time.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but I don't also really want to know. Let's take another 5 minutes or so, and
Sure.
talk about your work and your organization, if you don't mind, Neil.
Yeah. What we were when we established Mama Kikas of Hope, we decided to focus on health, peace, education, and the leadership development. In the area of health, we provided support to the two medical institutions in the country, and we work with another organization to provide scholarships for young people for medical work, nursing, public health, and so forth. And then in the education, we work especially assisting girls' schools. And then in leadership was part of the scholarships and so forth. And then in the area of peace, there's a gentleman who worked with who was my buddy from primary school to high school, and then when we sent him to study at Fresno Pacific, and then by that time Fresno Pacific had opened a peace studies, a master's in peace studies, and I took some courses during the summer, and then I told him, I said, I think before you go back, I'm going to arrange for the university to also accept you in the master's program for peace studies, because I was doing business administration. And I think that's the future for us in the country. So when he came back to Congo and I had moved to the US, so we put together a group of people who would provide me some funding. And he was based in Congo to do seminars. And then later on, when we had the elections here, he was involved in training election observers. Because I shared with him, I said, his name was Pascal. I said, Pascal, do you remember in the 90s when I was in Congo, I got together with a friend of mine who is now the president of the National Commission on Human Rights. We traveled within our province to do training on about elections and how to organize elections, how to vote. At that time, they were not even talking about elections in the Congo. So when he came back, I would raise money, and rather than me doing the peace work, he was actually doing the peace work. And then in the training I was doing, we would include, especially when working with the doctors and nurses, hospital administrators, I would do the management part, public health part, and he would do the the peace building part. Unfortunately, in 2018, he had run for parliament. He won the elections, and then just before they were supposed to open, he died suddenly. So now here we have developed this center. We have it as a conference center, plus 5 rooms for guests to do seminars, conferences, and we are working on some conferences on violence as a health issue, health and human rights issues. And we are wanted to work also. I've been working at putting together a group of young physicians, and I think I have about 10 now, to meet regularly on the peace issues, as well as the whole question of positive masculinity. And the president had been working on that, but I'm thinking that we should be talking about positive masculinity, femininity together, not just one, because it's a bit. Maybe
you've just opened up a whole realm of potential other conversations I'd like to pursue. Unfortunately, our time is up, and then some. We'll have to do a little of this, but it's been such an interesting conversation with you, and a great chance to get acquainted. So I hope we have further interactions. And Neil, thank you for this.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's I always learn from Pakiza, regardless, even if I've heard some of the stories before. I'm constantly learning. So thank you again, Pakiza.
That's wonderful.
Well, Neil's my mentor too.
Okay. Well, we're all in it together, I think. Now.
Yes, that's right.
Appreciate it so much. Well, good wishes to you, and we'll be back in touch.
Okay? Yeah, thank you very much, Meta.
Excellent. All right.